With the recent release of The Munsters, what better time to rank all 9 Rob Zombie movies from worst to best? Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm the movie ranker, and today I'll be ranking every Rob Zombie movie from worst to best. He has 9 of them, one of them being an animated direct-to-video movie, so this should be interesting. I'm a big fan of the guy's music. Way before his movie career, I was into White Zombie, Rob Zombie. I remember seeing Dragula premiere on TV, the music video for that, at a very young age. So I enjoy the guy's movies and his music. His movies are definitely much more divisive. A lot of people hate him, a lot of people love him. I'm somewhere in the middle. I think he has some good, some bad, so let's rank them. So coming in the last place for me at number 9, we got the movie 31. I'm not a fan of this movie at all. I think all the characters are completely unlikable, and they make very dumb decisions. Like, the whole concept of this movie is great, where they get put in a facility and they have to try to survive, I think it's 12 hours with a bunch of killers after them, right? I thought that's a really cool concept. One of the best things about the movie, but there's like, while they're trying to survive and the killers are coming after them, they literally find a table full of food, and one of them thinks this is a good time to eat. Like, just very dumb character decisions, very unlikable characters. That might have been on purpose, since these are all carnival workers and they're not the most likable people anyway. But yeah, just did not enjoy this film at all. All the killers were too silly. The movie tries to have a dark tone, but then you have these really goofy, ridiculous killers in here, like Mini Hitler or like the big Russian dude in a tutu. It's just too ridiculous for me. I will say that Doomhead was probably the best part of this movie, played by Richard Brake. We just don't get enough of him, unfortunately. But yeah, he is excellent in the role and the only redeemable killer in this movie. And yeah, just the way things play out is terrible. I hate the ending. It almost ends on a cliffhanger, which we'll never get to see what happens. It's just a terrible movie all around, and I'll probably never revisit it. Next up at number 8, we got the brand new The Munsters. Now, full disclaimer, I have never gotten into the original TV series, so I have really no connection to this film. I was more of an Addams Family type guy. But besides that, this movie is very well directed. You got great lighting, great set designs. All on a technical aspect, it's really well made film. But yeah, it's just so childish to me. Just not my cup of tea. Of course, this is a PG movie. It's okay for the entire family, I suppose, compared to any other Rob Zombie movie, which is kind of cool that he tried something different. And I can really tell this was Rob Zombie's passion project. He's a big fan of the Munsters. But yeah, this is just not for me. The comedy was just cringeworthy to me. Nothing was funny. It was all just way too silly and cheap. I feel like the performances were okay for this type of movie. Sherry Moon Zombie in particular, she's not the best actress, but with this role, I felt like it just worked for her. But all in all, it's just not my cup of tea, guys. Up next, at number 7, we got The Haunted World of El Superbeasto. This is his animated film. It was a first-time watch for me. Let me tell you, bizarre as hell. Like, honestly, it felt like I was watching an adult pornographic animated film. Literally every scene has to have titties or ass hanging out, and it's just like really overly done in this movie, which is really weird because a lot of the jokes and the sense of humor is very childish, but yet the movie is completely perverted. So it's just two really odd tones going against each other here, and it doesn't really feel like a movie. This feels like Zombie. I bet you any money Zombie wanted to make a TV series, an animated adult TV series, and I bet he couldn't get any studio to back him or anything, so he decided to just make his pilot a little bit longer, stretch it out, and make it an hour and 17 minutes long. That's what it feels like. It's very episodic in the way the story's told. On a positive note, I think that the voice casting was very well done. Everybody does an excellent job with the voices, especially Sherry Moon Zombie. I feel like her little tiny voice works with this animated character. I think the violence was really cool. All the blood in that we get in here. Very ultra violent. I really liked all the tributes and references to horror movies all the way back from the 30s till now. There's a little bit for everyone here. And even Zombies movies himself, he has certain characters like Otis and Captain Spaulding in here, which was really cool to see. And I feel like this probably could have been a late night TV series on like Adult Swim or something, but would have to play at like 2 in the morning for the amount of nudity on here, or they would have to cover it up, the nudity, with like black bars or something, because it's just way too much. I feel like I'm watching an anime porn when I watch this. So yeah, it was okay, but probably nothing that I'll ever revisit again. Honestly, it kind of feels like a mixture of like adult Ren and Stimpy and like Stripperella and like the old heavy metal animated movie all mashed together with way more nudity. Up next at number 6, we got The Lords of Salem, another first time watch for me, one I always want to check out, and it's different. I really do like Sherry Moon Zombie's performance in here. She's very hit or miss for me, but this time I feel like it's one of her best performances. And she's like a struggling addict, trying to overcome her like crystal meth addiction. And I really like the themes in the movie and how it deals with her struggle and how these addicts don't always win their battles. Even if they have support all around them, it can still end badly for them. And she easily lets the evil influence her, whether you're talking about the drugs or the witches itself, which was a really cool like themes and metaphors put in there. I think that the first 2/3 of this movie has a great setup, build up to what's to come. For me, it's just that final act. And some people are gonna love this. But it's done in a very artsy way. And like an elevated horror type way, if you get my drift. Which is just doesn't suit my taste, my personal taste. I didn't hate it or anything. It just goes in a very bizarre place with great visuals. But you really have to dig deeper, to get the full meaning of this movie and the ending. I think it's clever in a way. It's just not up to my personal taste. That's it. And while the movie wasn't really for me, I do have to give it kudos for actually making me think. Out of all the Rob Zombie movies, I think this is the deepest one with its themes and messages. Which, yeah, I gotta give him props for that. He tried something different. It's not my personal taste. But this will work for a lot of people, and I do understand why it's at the top of a lot of people's rankings. Next up at number 5, we got the controversial Halloween 2. Another movie that's I love it or hate it. Except for me. I'm in the middle on it. A movie I used to hate, but I've grown to appreciate a little bit more, but I'm still not quite there yet. Amazing performances all around the board. Whether you're talking about Scout Taylor Compton, I thought she was way better in this than in the original. I love how they deal with her PTSD and her trauma. Daniel Harris as Annie as well is great. So is her dad, Brad Dourif, who plays sheriff. His emotion is just... It's probably the most deep, emotional moment of the entire movie, or entire filmography for Rob Zombie, when the sheriff finds his daughter. It's just such a gut punch, and Brad Dourif completely sells it with his performance. But on the other hand, no matter how much great I talk about with this film, how brutal it is and all that, you got the other side where you got the most unlikable character in Dr. Loomis. I freaking hate the direction they took him in. I understand this is a different universe or whatever than the original John Carpenter's Halloween, but you still don't have to make him a complete asshole douchebag who's just exploiting everybody and trying to make as much money as he can off the whole Myers thing. And Myers himself is this giant hobo, and I don't see him as Myers. Hell, I don't even think he sees himself as Myers. He's carrying around his mask half the time, not even wearing it anymore. Yes, he's brutal, violent. This is probably our most depraved Myers to date. but it just doesn't feel like Myers to me. And lastly, the white horse shit and the ghost mom that should have never been in this film. I get a lot of people like the symbolism there and all that, but it just has no place in this movie, in my opinion. You know what's weird and doesn't need to be there when they literally have to have a page at the starting of the movie explaining what the white horse means, because if that wasn't there, we wouldn't have a goddamn clue what was going on, which is not the best storytelling when you have to literally put a description on the screen of why stuff is happening. It's like you should just be able to show us and us understand. But that's enough about Halloween 2. Now, reaching our top 4, I just have to say that these movies now are all a passing grade for me. The ones below this I'm either mixed on or I just do not enjoy at all. But coming in at number 4, we got 3 from Hell. Now, my least favorite movie in the Firefly trilogy, but I love the Firefly trilogy, so don't take that take that with a grain of salt. The movie has great directing. I think this is one of his better directed movies. Whether you're talking about your camera angles, your shots, your cinematography, everything all put together, I think this is very well made. I think the performances are pretty good. Not as good as The Devil's Rejects, but serviceable enough. It's just unfortunate that they undo the ending of Devil's Rejects and just kind of be like, oh, they all survived. Which is like, there's no way in hell they would have all survived unless they're superhuman. And unfortunately, Sid Haig wasn't able to be in this film very much due to his condition, and he passed shortly after the film was released. So I think that's why they had to rework this movie after Rob Zombie found out about his condition, and I think that hurt the movie. God knows what we really would have gotten with the original draft of this. But like I said, it's entertaining. It's an easy watch. It just feels unnecessary in this trilogy, and everything it goes for with its violence, with its scenes that make you feel uncomfortable, and that it just doesn't quite reach the levels that it's going for. Devil's Rejects, which I'll get to, I feel like does an amazing job at that. And this one kind of tries to copy it, but it falls short in most cases. But again, it's very entertaining. I still put it on from time to time. I think Richard Brake was a really cool addition to this movie as like the Midnight Wolfman, I believe his name was. But it's just unfortunate that we didn't get Sid Haig, and the movie just feels unnecessary. Reaching our top 3, at number 3, we got Halloween from 2007. Now, I know most people hate this movie for what it does with Michael's backstory. With the whole Myers being bullied and having a rough upbringing, which in turn made him a violent serial killer. Which, yeah, if this was a sequel to John Carpenter's movies, I think it would be completely trash, because that would ruin everything that Carpenter set up. But since this is like Rob Zombie's vision and his own version, I can let it slide a lot more than most people, and I find it's kind of interesting to dive into his background a little bit more. I will say it makes the character a little bit less scary, because you like humanize them too much, but I appreciate what he went for, and it is something different, which remakes tend to copy and paste way too often. The second half of this movie is much more of a copy and paste remake, unfortunately. They do modernize it and kind of just make it more violent, but at the end of the day, it's very similar to Carpenter's original, the second half, with a little bit less likable characters. I'm not a big fan of... I do really enjoy Annie in here, Danielle Harris. I think she's a step up from the original, but Stout Taylor Compton and I can't remember the other girl who plays Linda. They're just not as good to me. They're okay, they're serviceable, but they're lacking charm. And I know a lot of people like how they're talking like actual teenagers, but to me it just comes off as weird, especially when she's like playing with her bagel and that at the breakfast scene. It's just weird. But all in all, this is a decent flick, and it's one of the don't want to say one of the better Halloween movies, but it's definitely better than half of them. Reaching our top 2, we got House of 1000 Corpses. Funny thing, I watched this movie when it came out, knew nothing about it aside from Rob Zombie directed it, and at the time, this was probably the most bizarre, bonkers horror movie I've ever seen. At the time, I was, this released in 2003, so I was like 12 or so at the time. I've watched many horror movies like Scream, Evil Dead, all that stuff, but I never watched many like exploitation movies or like the real grindhouse type movies. This one definitely goes there. I love the homages to like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and all those other exploitation movies from the 70s. I think it does a real good job at being gritty and just feeling nasty. We get a lot more Firefly characters in this. We get a big family dynamic. They don't all work, but for the most part, it works for the movie. Like for instance, like Baby, played by Sherry Moon Zombie, she is so goddamn annoying in this, and I hate her character here. She's redeemed in the following sequels, but in the original, oof, her laugh is just, oh, it drives me up the wall. But yeah, you gotta love Captain Spaulding, played by Sid Haig. He's like a standout in this. Otis, played by Bill Moseley. He's okay. I feel like they upgrade him as well, but he's not that bad in this one. Is this kind of weird that he's like an albino kind of in this one? And I do like the whole ending with Dr. Satan and the whole underground thing. It almost feels like a Mad Max type ending, the way they're dressed and shit. And it does take away a little bit of the realism from the rest of the movie. But the movie is just already so bonkers, I can just appreciate the direction it goes in. Not a perfect film. It definitely has some issues with its editing. Some of it feels cool with its little like transition scenes, but at most of the times it actually feels very amateur-like, which is understandable, this being Zombie's first movie and he didn't really know what he was doing. But for a guy who didn't know what he's doing, he made a pretty decent horror movie, and I enjoy it. I put this one on every couple of years or so, and I have a hell of a time. But easily coming in the first place is The Devil's Rejects. This movie is his masterpiece, in my opinion. The one that's easily the best crafted. You get the best performances here. Like I said, Baby is way better in this. She's not annoying at all. She's still crazy, but they take away a lot of that stupid laugh she had and all that. Otis, holy shit. They made him like god tier horror villain in this. Love what they did with him and how menacing he is and all of his dialogue and everything. And like I said, they take away the whole albino thing. They do a great job with him. Of course, Sid Haig, again, is excellent. So I think every character is done very well. And for some reason, we root for them at times. And they're so depraved, so disgusting. I don't know how Zombie does it, but by the end, you're kind of actually rooting for these serial killers in a really weird way. And again, it's just a great homage. This one feels more like an exploitation movie than it does like House did. House felt more like a grindhouse type movie, but this one just goes there. Very uncomfortable scenes, and he does an excellent job at just getting under your skin, especially like the whole motel scene. That's something straight up like I Spit on Your Grave or something. Just done so well. And the ending, you'll never hear the song Freebird the same again. I feel like that was the way they should have ended the Firefly family. Like I said, it feels unnecessary in 3 from Hell, but here it was just the perfect conclusion. I love everything about this movie, really. I love how they're on the run, the cops are trying to get them, and it's just everything about this movie just works for me in every aspect. The violence, the performances, the story is so good. So without a doubt, this easily comes in the first place for me. So there you have it, guys. There's my ranking of all 9 Rob Zombie movies from worst to best. I'd love to hear your ranking. I'm sure 99% of the people are going to have different rankings because his movies are so divisive, and you know, it has definitely a certain style to them that's not going to be for everyone. So I'm real interested to hear your guys' rankings down below in the comment section. And until next time, guys, thanks for watching.